So take a look at this headline. Controversial Center for Men opens in Toronto amid criticism. Hello, it's Blue Orange 22. So as you can see from the title, this story is an example of the kinds of things that we see feminists do that hurt men. It's why MRAs sometimes say that we're anti-feminist. Again, it's not because we're against the idea of equality for women. It's that there are things that some feminists sometimes do that directly hurt and affect men. And in this story, I'm going to give you an example of that. And believe me, there are worse examples than this story that I'm going to be getting into in future videos. But let's take a look at this article and see what it says. Okay, so here's the first paragraph. A controversial men's rights center opened in Toronto Monday amid criticism from feminists who say the organization is more concerned about attacking feminism than promoting the health of men. Okay, so we have that it's controversial and feminists are protesting against it because they're saying it's more about attacking feminism than actually helping men. But let's see what the center actually is and what the center actually says about itself. It's being called a social service facility that serves a hub for men's and boys' issues and for the health and well-being of boys more generally, according to the group's director, Justin Trottier, who spoke to Global News prior to the center's launch. The group offers in-house services like counseling for men and boys, as well as education resources about suicide, family law issues, and abuse. So, what exactly is wrong with that? Counseling for suicide and health and things of that nature? How exactly is that attacking feminism? Like, what exactly are feminists objecting to there? Because that sounds like a positive help for the community. I don't understand how that's attacking feminism. But let's see what feminists actually have to say. So here is a quote from a feminist talking about the center. By the way, I've linked this article down in the description below. I think they work really hard to discredit the feminist movement and to kind of take back a lot of the gains that women have made, Anna Therault, a feminist blogger in Toronto, said in an interview Monday. Okay, but how though? Like, how is that discrediting feminism? Just by opening a center talking about men's health and suicide and education. And when she says they're trying to take back gains that women made, how is trying to talk about counseling for suicide and health taking back gains that women made? How is that possibly hurting women in any way? And when she says they're trying to discredit feminism, it's the other way around. She's trying to discredit them. She's coming right off the bat and just attacking them just for existing. Just for trying to talk about men's health and counseling and suicide and abuse and things like that. What exactly is the basis for this attack? And how exactly are they trying to hurt women by having this center? She then goes on to say this. They're basically an anti-feminist organization, and they're kind of masquerading this as, oh well, it's just for disenfranchised men, when they kind of have an ulterior agenda. But what? What ulterior agenda? And what makes them anti-feminist? What are they saying that's anti-feminist? So this is a common point of debate between MRAs and feminists, and it's something I think feminists are very hypocritical about. Feminists always criticize MRAs for not doing enough activism and not actually doing anything to help men. That's a very frequent criticism you will hear feminists say. But this is literally men organizing to do something positive, and then feminists attack them for it. And the way that feminists say that, oh, well, these guys are just trying to hurt women, it's the other way around. Feminists are the ones attacking them. These guys aren't doing anything to try and hurt women. She then goes on to say this line, which I think is very telling. Therault says she has no problem with shelters for men or counseling services for men and boys, but says CAFE has a pretty poor track record. CAFE is the organization opening the center. If you look right above the highlighted portion, It says, the controversial Canadian Association for Equality is the group behind the launch. Basically, they're an MRA group. But what does that mean? So she says she has no problem with shelters for men, and she has no problem with the idea, but she has a problem with who's doing it. So to me, that sounds kind of like saying men are only allowed to talk for themselves if it's in a way that we approve of. Like feminists have to control the way that anything for men or boys works. Like they have to be in charge of it. Like men aren't allowed to do it on their own. It has to be in a way that feminists approve of, which I think is wrong. I think that a men's movement or a men's shelter should be something that men get to decide how to do. Now, it's actually been worse than this. Feminists in Canada have a history of using violent threats to try and shut down MRAs from organizing and doing things. Take a look at this from the article. It says, but the group has been the center of controversy before, highlighted by a cafe-sponsored talk by Dr. Warren Farrell, an American men's rights activist at the University of Toronto in 2012. The talk drew dozens of protesters who claimed Farrell was spreading hate speech and tried to convince men to not partake in the talk. Eventually, police had to be called in to monitor the situation. Now, you might be saying, well, how is that a threat of violence? Well, in the article, you'll see a link to a video of that protest. So watch it and then tell me if you think that it looks like violence or aggression or hostility or threats, because it absolutely does. And it shows that feminists absolutely attack and interfere with MRAs just for existing, just for trying to open a center to talk about suicide or men's health, or just for trying to give a talk at a university. Feminists don't even want to allow MRAs to speak, and that in and of itself should be very telling.